Sunday evening across the West Midlands. We thank you very much indeed for joining us, the West Midlands Football Podcast from your local TV station. I'm Ben Ellis. It's an awesome foursome on the show this evening. We have with us Dom Phillips, we have Jonathan Wimbush, and we have Gav Longthorne. Lots of things to talk about. First of all, good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We are streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at the moment. But for the next at least 20 minutes, we might just be kind of a bit distracted because we're sort of all looking at sort of over our cameras and over our screens at what's going on at the Vitality Stadium in the FA Cup, where Boreham Wood are still winning against Bournemouth by a 1-0. And it's where we're going to start our discussion, which we wouldn't normally, but we all had that great FA Cup moment kind of cruelly snatched away yesterday at Agbra, and Kidderminster Harriers, one of the most gutsy and gallant displays I've ever seen from a non-league team in an FA Cup side. There's no question about that. And West Ham literally needed the last kick of the game in 90 minutes and the last kick of the game in extra time to get through to the fifth round of the FA Cup. I'm going to come to you first, Dom. I didn't see the game live. I was out and about. But it was so close.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't even say it was close. I just think there was one Premier League team that played that day, and it was Kidderminster. You know, you talked about how gutsy and gallant the Kidderminster display was, and I completely agree. But what also impressed me is that they were so tactically brilliant as well. They were really resolute defensively. Players like Matt Preston and Nathan Cameron, the centre-back duo, the former getting man of the match, absolutely huge displays. But also up front, Amari Morgan-Smith was an absolute handful, and the wide players, Hemmings and Sterling James, the latter of formerly of Solihull Moors. It was a fantastic display. They really took the game to West Ham. They were on top. They had the better chances. They had more of the ball. They had more of the play. And they just looked firm. They looked like a Premier League team. And West Ham just looked like they were completely in over their heads and they didn't know what was going on. So, again, it was close for Kidderminster, but I just can't believe that they've not won that game. It's really beggars belief to me, to be honest. And if I was a Kidderminster fan, I'd just be so upset because it's the cruelest way to lose after a performance that befitted someone of many, many divisions higher than where they find themselves in the pyramid at the moment.
Absolutely. And Jonathan, I mean, you look at the pattern of it, it wasn't as if they nicked a goal and then hung on for everything they had and just couldn't hold out till the final seconds. It wasn't as if they were like under siege from West Ham at all, was it? I mean, yes, West Ham came up with the quality when they needed to at the vital times, but it wasn't like, you know, when you go, if you go a goal up at the Etihad or something and you know, right, we've got 80 minutes here where we've got to kind of sort of hang on. It didn't feel like that. It was very even, and as Dom says, that they had their moments even at 1-0 up.
Yeah, I mean, football can be a cruel game sometimes, and to be honest, that's as poor as I've seen West Ham play this season. They've got through by virtue of two moments of Premier League quality from Declan Rice and Jared Bowen. So to do that against the non-league side, and obviously as West Bromwich Albion is closely affiliated with Kidderminster Harriers, you know, this hits home a bit. How, you know, we Baggies fans, we wanted Kidderminster to go through, and to just lose it the last kick of 90 minutes and the last kick of 120 minutes, it's heartbreaking. And you know, I really felt for the Kiddie fans from a Baggies point of view. And yeah, you know, I didn't watch the game myself because I was at work at the time, but I was all over social media, and we had like the West Bromwich Albion Twitter admin, you know, congratulating the Kiddie team on a gutsy performance. And, you know, they were just so unlucky, Kidderminster was.
Bournemouth have just gone very close in the game against Boreham Wood through one-on-one. Billings was onside and he's just looped the ball over the top of the keeper and it's landed on the roof of the net. about 12 minutes to go, Boreham would still lead by a goal to nil. Gav, probably isn't anything that you could kind of add to what the guys have said there, but sort of looking at the wider point with Middlesbrough winning at Old Trafford and what we're seeing here, and obviously Nottingham Forest earlier on today, smashing Leicester by 4-1 in an East Midlands derby. Do you feel that the FA Cup has kind of got its mojo back now?
Well, it's always got that for it, Ben. Really, I mean, there isn't any other competition in the country where you're going to be playing different levels of teams with each other. But as you say, it seems like more this season. It might be because the fans are back as well, so there's more of an oomph behind it, and there's more excitement behind it because they'll actually be there watching it live. As far as the Kidderminster game goes, I can only echo what Dom and Jonathan have both said, really. I think that tells you why football can be a sport that you love, and it can be cruel at times as well. It wasn't a game where I think West Ham were bombarding them. I think it was actually a game that could have gone either way from what I've saw. And as you say, there's other elements that have happened in the fourth round as well, like the shock of the Leicester result earlier, where, I mean, Notts Forest didn't really get 4 chances and went and put them away out of 4. It seemed like it was a very fair and just result from what I saw, really. And I would say that it has, in a way, because, as you say, it might be because the fans are coming back into the stadiums as well. But as a neutral point of view, whatever your affiliation is, you're always going to have that roll a little small when teams do run them close or they do knock them out.
Yeah, fans being back in the stadiums has been a good thing for the FA Cup, but also, Dom, wall-to-wall terrestrial coverage as well. There's no pay TV coverage of the FA Cup this year. It's shared between the BBC and ITV, and I think that's important. There's a real connect with your everyday fan.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it sort of builds a sense of unity among football fans as a collective as well. I mean, Jonathan was talking about how closely affiliated Baggies are with it's a goal 1-1 in the Bournemouth game. Sorry to quickly cut off what I was saying. Oh, it's been disallowed, I think. Offside. There you go. Anyway,
yes, offside. Confirmed.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's one of those things that brings football fans together. Jonathan was saying, West Brom are so affiliated with Kidderminster. I know Wolves are as well. Players like Keith Lowe sort of coming in, the manager, Russ Penn, who really impressed me. Given it's his first managerial job, I thought the tactics of Kidderminster were fantastic. They're a great team to watch, and they're very brave. So I think he's got a fantastic future in the game. And I just think Kiddie are one of those things where they're affiliated across the Midlands, and that's why it's important we talk about it. And having that sort of experience be broadcast on BBC and on ITV means that your everyday football fan who wants to go and watch Kiddie versus West Ham but can't because the ground's only got a few thousand capacity can get, could go anywhere to watch it on the BBC ITV or stay at home as well. So I agree. I think it's really good that the FA Cup is being broadcast on those platforms.
Yeah, just confirmation of Bournemouth having a goal disallowed. I mean, there isn't VAR because Bournemouth are now Championship club. A season or so ago, there would have been VAR, which is interesting. And there were a couple of phases after the initial play offside, so it could have been arguable. But I think the right decision was indeed made. So Boreham would still lead by a goal to nil, very tense at the Vitality Stadium. So we're staying with the FA Cup. And we're moving on to Molyneux now. And Gav, didn't see this coming on Saturday, I must admit.
No. I could see that Dom's got a right smile as we're talking about it. I was saying it when I was walking out of the ground yesterday. I know it might not be important to him now, but I think Dean Smith, from a Villa point of view, might have gotten his own back from that 3-2 early in the season now. No, I didn't see it coming at all, Ben. More than anything, I'm really disappointed. Not just the result, the performance. I think they just got it completely wrong yesterday. I think there was a lot of overthinking in the build-up play. I think there was just a sense of, I don't know whether it was a sense of the thought that Norwich weren't going to be taking it seriously, so it was going to be a bit of a buy. Even though I don't think that's the manager's mentality, but sometimes the players do think it as well. And just very annoying and disappointing, really. I think from what you've seen happen in the FA Cup so far and the position that Wolves are in the table, I think it would really have been a good basis for a cup run this season if they could have got this, if they could have got through this round. Obviously, they're going to hit Liverpool in the next round, but who's to say they couldn't have beaten them? It's a one-off game on the day, and it's just a sense of deflation walking out of Molineux yesterday. I think a lot of people were thinking the same as me, that it could have been the season where we could have had another cup run. Not so much danger of negativities going on in the league, even though we are close in touch with the top six. I don't think it was the priority this season. So it's very annoying. I think from what I watched yesterday as well, I think when you play these types of games, even though they do put on the badge, I'm not going to berate them too much, but it does show up a couple of players that really, I think if you're going to kick onto that next level, I don't think they're going to be the right ones for us. I mean, if any Wolves fans are listening, or you three that are on here with me live could tell me what Dendoncker brings to a football team, I'll happily listen to you, because I just don't get it personally. I've watched him for nearly 4 years now, and I just personally don't get it. He must have something, because he plays quite a lot for Belgium, but I just don't see it. I think there's another one like Aït-Nouri when he plays really well, he plays really well, but I think there's still that rawness in his game where I think, especially watching him yesterday, he seems to get dragged out of position quite easily, and he seems to not watch what's going on around him, and he does get caught out. But yeah, going back to the original question, it was just utter deflation really yesterday, walking out there 5-5.
Do you think that, and added to what we talked about on Wednesday, the non-existent activity on deadline day as well, meant that it's kind of 2 weeks ago we were talking about maybe we could be pushing for top four if we make a signing or two, or if we or if we have a break here and there, and they're set up, Wolves, for a good cup run. Don't concede many goals. Got a chance of nicking a goal with some really good players in the side, and if they went 1-0 up, if they, like you say, Liverpool in the next round, if they went 1-0 up at Anfield, you'd back them to hold out, at least take Liverpool to extra time. So there's scope. There was scope there for a cup run, surely. But it wasn't as if it was Bruno Lage's like, we'll make wholesale changes and it's the FA Cup and priorities the league. I mean, he went for it yesterday, didn't he? The team selection wasn't.
Yeah,
wrong.
Apart from Silva playing instead of Jimenez, Jimenez is like the first name on the team sheet for me most weeks. I think a lot of that being put into was the fact that he played for Mexico 3 days earlier, so he played Silva instead, but he was the strongest team, apart from Ruddy playing as well also, because he's the cup keeper. It's the strongest team we could have selected. I just don't know what the thinking was with the way that they played that game yesterday. It's a missed opportunity, as you said. Going back to the point as well, talking about the lack of transfer activity, unfortunately I couldn't make the show on Tuesday night, but it's disappointing really. I wasn't banking on it, but I was hoping that we would bring at least one player in that could have given us something different. From a business point of view and a footballing point of view, I understand the decision to sell Adama to Barcelona, especially when that type of money is being offered, when it's a case of the player's only got 12 months out of his contract at the end of the season. I do understand it, but it does show it up a lot yesterday when he's something completely different and alien to what we have already that plays most weeks, and he could have really done something to bring you back into the game yesterday. Not so much saying it's a log for log that we'd need coming in for Adam, but it's somebody maybe, as we've mentioned, and I've just gone on about it so much about Wolves, but we're just crying out for another midfielder that's got a bit more creativity and a bit more of that number 10 style play that could have cut them open yesterday. I think that's really what we needed. I mean, Dean Smith went there with a plan. I mean, it worked. I think he went there to disrupt the flow of the game. He went there to cause irritation. And I think he set the team out really well to play break football. And all four of us are football fans, and we do watch football games. And you get an inkling within about half an hour of a game. Sometimes it's just not going to be your day. It's one of those where I think for us it would seem like a labour to create a chance, but for them it was 1-2 pass and on the break and they'd be getting a chance created. But yeah, it's a tough one to take really. I mean, if we go and beat Arsenal on Thursday night and we get more into touch and distance with them, I think it will be forgotten about. But it's hard to take at the time. As a football fan, I'm sure everybody will agree with me if we've all been there.
Yeah, we'll come on to what's to come for Wolves in just a minute. But Dom, Gav mentions the midfield at the midfield situation there and the lack of sort of activity. I mean, in his prime, I don't think there's many of us that wouldn't want a Moutinho in our midfield. But what age is he now? 102, 103? I mean, what if you're still reliant on that in the middle of your midfield going forward, you do have a problem, don't you?
Yeah, I agree. I think Wolves could have done with... I mean, Gav can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but my understanding of it last summer was that they were very close to agreeing a deal for Renato Sanchez. They were linked with him again in the January window, and he's probably one that will happen this summer. It just seems like one of those deals that's sort of set up in advance, if that makes sense. And I think they need him because even though I don't think he's a traditional number 10, he's good at driving with the ball from deep and getting box to box, and that's similar to what Jacob Ramsey does, but I just think he does it more consistently, more energetically, and more creatively than João Moutinho does. So I think they need someone like that in that midfield. The decision to loan out Morgan Gibbs-White and not have him in the midfield. I mean, if he's not doing well, then yeah, clarify that with me. But I think he's the type of player that Wolves should be having in their lineup. You know, ahead of someone like Dendoncker, who, as Gav says, I just don't really see the point of him. He seems quite an obsolete kind of player to me.
I just need to say this while we continue with the discussion on Wolves. The manager of Boreham Wood, Luke Garrard. I mean, we if you talk about your manager and complaining about tactics and having no football nous whatsoever, you know, this is a non-league manager who's just made 2 substitutions 2 minutes apart from each other to waste as much time as possible. He could have brought 2 players on at the same time. So he made 1 substitution, and it took about 30 to 45 seconds for him to come off. Then another couple of minutes later, he made another one, same kind of thing. There's about 2 minutes to go of the 90 minutes at the Vitality Stadium. All eyes will be on the 4th official for sure, but it's getting very tense. But they are putting everything into this, our Boreham Wood. So, Jonathan, we'll come on to yourself. I gather you probably won't want to discuss Wolverhampton Wanderers, to be honest, much. But Gav, you mentioned what's to come this week. Obviously, Arsenal on Thursday night, and then Tottenham on Sunday. So back-to-back games. Now, given what we've just discussed in terms of going out of the FA Cup and the lack of transfer activity as well, back-to-back games now in the Premier League, 2 direct rivals if you're competing for a European place. Yes, Tottenham and Arsenal claim they're going for top 4, but that's going to be difficult for both of them realistically to get into. So with West Ham as part of the equation as well. So and Man United, of course. So you know, the next 2 games will tell us a lot about where this Wolves side are.
Yes, definitely. As I said earlier, I think if you get something on Thursday night, yesterday will be forgotten about. But there's no reason why we can't get 4 points out of those 2 games and be still in touching distance. I mean, Arsenal are having their own problems at the moment. I think they've transfer window, so talk about frustration. I think that was the ultimate frustration with themselves as well. Spurs are a team that we can definitely go there and get at. They've got a manager there who's frustrated at the moment, and to be honest with you, in my opinion, I think he's one argument away from walking away from there with the board. I think it will tell you a lot. I think it's definitely those sort of games that I think speaking about it yesterday, coming out of the ground, I think those 2 games will tell you whether it's going to be a fight for 6th or it's going to be a 10th or 11th this season, personally. But there's no reason why we can't go into these games and get something against them. It's just frustrating because we've had that break, that pointless break, in my opinion, after all of these fixture build-ups that we've had. And I think going into that game yesterday wasn't something that helped us also because of the amount of time that we had between games. I think you'd like to be like, when you know what it's like in football, when you're really on form, you want to be playing again the week after and keeping that momentum going. But agreed, Ben. I think that will definitely tell us what how the season's going to go.
Your signal just broke up a little bit. Who's 1 row away from walking away with the board? Conte?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have been surprised if he'd have walked away at the end of that window because I think those 2 players that he from what I heard, were brought in were players that he wasn't too keen on. And I think it was more to try and appease him bringing someone in rather than the 2 that obviously got away that he wanted. One going to Barcelona, who's from our place, and another one that went somewhere else. So I would personally think he is. I'm surprised he's still there. If I'm going to be completely honest with you, very similar to the Nuno appointment. It just doesn't seem like a good fit to me. So we'll see anyway.
They're definitely in transition as Spurs, but it's not the North London podcast; it's the West Midlands podcast.
Yeah.
5 minutes of stoppage time at the Vitality Stadium. Keep you sort of in touch with that. We'll come back to the weekend's action very shortly, but we've kept Jonathan hanging on long enough. So we'll move on to West Brom, and well. We talked about it the other night. Is it a stay of execution for Valérien Ismaël? Then the decision came. I think it was the next day. I think it was Wednesday.
It was literally the day after. Yeah.
The day after we spoke, and Steve Bruce was automatically put in long odds-on favourite. So somebody knows something in the world of betting, and there you go. Steve Bruce is now the manager of West Bromwich Albion. How do you feel?
Well, I don't feel too bad, to be honest. I mean, there were other managers that was in the running, to be honest. But I honestly said last week that I didn't see where Valérien Ismaël was going to be sacked that weekend and that week, sorry. And then literally the next day we were hearing that he'd been sacked. So that in itself surprised me that West Bromwich Albion actually did what the fans were wanting, because obviously by the end of it, as I said last week, the Millwall game and the Preston game. So Val Ball's out. That's a godsend, to be honest. But now we've got Steve Bruce, who now this is an interesting stat. He's managed both Sheffield clubs. He's managed Newcastle and Sunderland. And now he's managed three out of the 4 teams that we discuss in this podcast. So that is interesting, with him being an ex-Blues and Villa manager. But yeah, I mean, I saw glimpses of his first training session on the Albion website, and it does look promising. He's gelling with the players. There's a nice little bit on that video of him talking to Carl and Grant. So his man management is excellent, it has to be said. But we'll see where it goes from there, because our next game is this Wednesday against Sheffield United, and Sheffield United done a number on Birmingham yesterday, it has to be said. But sky's the limit at the moment. We'll see how he goes.
Bournemouth have just gone so close to the Vitality Stadium. Dominic Solanke dragging a shot that went inches wide, and Bournemouth would have just made another substitution. Niall Ranger just gone. Did he play for Wolves, Gav? Niall Ranger. What does that name ring a bell?
I think there was. Didn't he go to Blues for a short-term deal?
Yeah, I know there's a local. It rang a bell when his name flashed up on the screen. It rang a bell.
I think he played one game and then he disappeared off the face of the planet, didn't he? I think. Yeah. What I believe, what I remember anyway, but.
Deep in
loads of attitude problems, didn't he? He was loads of off the field problems, and he just sort of went to prison for a time, floated around clubs, never really got his career on track, and now he's back at Bournemouth. Well, not back at Bournemouth, but back at our top level stadium playing football. Funny stuff, innit?
Corner coming in for Bournemouth. It's all hands.
Less than a minute now as well.
Less than a minute to go. As far as West Brom are concerned, and I'll come to you on this one, Dom. I mean, Albion fans are complaining about the style of football under Valérien Ismaël, and it's not going to be any more aesthetically pleasing than the Steve Bruce. I think that's kind of fair to say. We know that, having been subject to Steve Bruce's brand of football. But unlike Valérien Ismaël, he does have a proven track record of success in the Championship. But I think more importantly, what we're going to see for the remainder of this season is that whatever the style of football and the situation surrounding the club, players will play for Steve Bruce. I don't think there was any... with Villa anyway, when it reached the very end and the cabbage incident and all that, I always felt the players played for Steve Bruce. I think Jack Grealish still has a very good, healthy relationship with Steve Bruce, for example. So one of the problems that they had before was the public falling out of certain players with Valérien Ismaël. That's not going to happen with Steve Bruce, is it?
No, it's not. That is the one thing that I think Steve Bruce will have over Valérien Ismaël is that he'll get the players on side. He's got the man management. He's got the sort of nous of the championship. I just don't think West Brom was ever going to be the environment for Ismaël. I think he had it perfectly at... I think he had the perfect environment for him at Barnsley. And that didn't happen at West Brom, obviously. In terms of the appointment, I don't think it's exactly a phenomenal one. I think what it will do is it'll get West Brom to a point where they'll have players who are happier, players who want to play, and I think it's those bare minimum things. But I've got to ask the question, can things be that bad if you're fifth in the league? You know, I know that it's not been glamorous. I've been very critical of Ismaël on this podcast myself. But I've got to say, can you be talking about a crisis where you need to appoint Steve Bruce, who is, I think, a bit of a nuclear option as manager, when you're fifth in the league? I think this appointment's coming off the back of the appointments of Ron Gourlay, I think it is, a CEO. If you look at his track record and his reputation in the game, he's sort of a Keith Winers kind of character. He's not someone that you can trust. He's a bit shady. That's based on what I've seen anyway. So I don't think that I think West Brom were like, oh, this is good because it's a break from what we had previously. And it is a break, but I don't think it's a good break. And I think long term, there's going to be fractions that show them it's just going to be the same as it was before.
The breaking news is that he's full-time at the Vitality Stadium. Boreham would have knocked Championship Bournemouth, Premier League Bournemouth, until only a couple of seasons ago, out of the FA Cup at the fourth round stage by a 0-0. Congratulations to them and to their supporters. The magic of the FA Cup is very definitely back. Jonathan, your response to Dom's comments there, particularly on the appointment of the new CEO.
Yeah, we've been reading all about the CEO's previous endeavours all week. The stuff that happened at Reading that has caused them to have points deductions and financial trouble. Yeah, that's what's worrying us at the moment. Because if you take a club like Reading that close to financial difficulty, then what are you going to do to West Bromwich Albion? So yeah, that was a bit of a worry, and I was speaking to other Baggies fans as well, and they weren't happy about the appointment of Ron Gourlay as CEO. But then straight away, Steve Bruce, we are in danger of slipping out. Yes, we're fifth. We're in danger of slipping out the playoffs if we carried on the way we were going. I think Steve Bruce has just come in to quote unquote steady the ship and make sure we do make playoffs. I don't think it'll be automatic promotion because obviously, as you said last week, Ben, Fulham are over the hills and far away to the Premier League, and there's some other strong teams in. I was going to say Bournemouth, but they've just lost. Blackburn. So yeah, I don't think we're actually going to make automatic playoffs, automatic places. But I think Steve Bruce is just there for now, for this season at least, is to ensure that we are part of the playoff setup at the end of the season.
It's an 18-month contract that Steve Bruce has come in on, which would indicate the rest of this season and at least the start of next season to see how it's all going. Do you think he's going to go in there with? You said you saw a bit of training online. Do you think he's going to go in there sort of clean slate and say to the likes of Sam Johnston and others that have had fallings out with Valérien Ismaël that draw a line under that? It's not my business, not my problem. You play for me now.
Yeah, like I said, here I've been told that his man management is excellent. He's been, he literally had his arm around Carlan Grant, having words with him. So that's good. And I know Carlan Grant has gone a little bit off the boil in recent weeks, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, there's certain players there that have fallen out with Valérien Ismaël, like Sam Johnston, that Bruce would just basically sit down and have a word with and say, in no uncertain terms, Valerine's no longer the manager. I am. So, just, leave that as water under the bridge. So, yeah, like I said, he's man management. He's excellent. So I reckon he'll get the players playing again, but not everyone is happy with the appointment itself. But I say, every manager deserves a chance.
Well, if people are saying that they're unhappy with the appointment, realistically, I mean, who else could they have got? I mean, just
I don't get it myself. I don't get it myself. Yeah, I don't get it myself.
But they just got rid of Valerian Ismail on a 4-year contract. To pay him off that is not going to be cheap. So they paid. How much compensation did they pay to Barnsley in the first place to get Valerian Ismail?
I'm not too sure, to be honest.
A million or two? It was
something like that,
it weren't peanuts. So
no, of course not.
They were never going to get somebody who was already in work. So realistically, I mean,
I know.
We talked about it the other day. You could have given it to James Morrison and Chris Brunt as a double act, maybe. But realistically, no, there was no other realistic candidate. And for West Brom fans who are, and I've heard them, particularly in the brand of football, the style of football, I think most of us as fans of whoever we support have a minimum expectation of the standard of football that we pay good money to see. I don't think there's any qualms about that. But you're in the Championship. It ain't going to be Brazil 1970. I think and I've heard Albion fans saying, "Oh, this ain't the way we play, and it's not the way it should be, and we're better than this." Blah blah. No, you're in the Championship, and it's a slog. It's 46 games, and okay, the last guy didn't do it for you. It's not going to be any, like I said before, it's not going to be any more aesthetically pleasing than it was before. There's just a better opportunity that they're all going to be singing from the same hymn sheet, which wasn't the case towards the end of Valerian Ismail's reign. So Sheffield United first up, and that's a very neat segue, Jonathan, as you mentioned. They were in town on Friday night, took 3 points away from St Andrews. I didn't see this game. Well, I saw the beginning of this game on Friday night. Long story short, my beautiful lady, you can see a picture of us behind us. We had a date night on Friday night, which was really nice. First chance we had in years since our daughter was born. So we were heading into town on Friday night and going in a taxi. We were down the bottom of Small Heath at about the time the game ended. So there was this mass exodus out of St Andrews, and there were some very glum faces. I must admit, there were some very glum and disheartened faces. They took the lead through was it Scott Hogan on Lyle Taylor. Lyle Taylor. But didn't. I mean, they held on to a 2-0 lead until the last couple of seconds at Derby. But I mean, it was almost instant, the reply from Sheffield United on Friday night. Yes, they brought new players in. Gav at Blues. I think they brought some good players in for the Championship. We talk about Taylor. I think Bakuna's a good signing in the Championship. Mengi, the lad from Man United that they've got on loan, I think has potential as well. So they've done all right there for Birmingham City. Anyway, they've done all right. They can freshen it up. It's going to take a little bit of time for it to all come together, but they're dropping points from winning positions. So is the glass half empty, half full? Yes, they're dropping points, but they're at least getting something right if they're getting themselves into winning positions.
Well, like you said, Ben, I think the signings at the Med are actually quite decent signings. I think Lyle Taylor, for some reason, when he's gone to Notts Forest, it hasn't worked out for him. But I think when you've watched him at Charlton, there's a really good footballer there. He'll definitely score your goals at that level if you play the right way for him, which we're seeing now from the last 2 games. He scored 2 in 2. Bakuna's solid as they come in at that level also as well. I think he'll definitely give something. He'll give you a bit of beef to the squad as well if you and competition. And the lock-for-lock signing of the centre-half when Sanderson got recalled to Wolves, and they've signed Mengi, who's very similar in style to him, playing that back three. I think it will benefit them. I don't know if I'm going to be honest with you. I think it is a disappointing result when you lose at home to anybody, because I think your home grounds, your fortress, especially at that level, you're going to make it hard for teams to beat you. But I think where Blues are at the moment, and any Blues fans listening, don't take disrespect to this, but you're not going to be challenging for the top 6. I think mid-table is probably what it's going to be. I think you're going to get games like this until, as you say, Ben, it's going to start really gelling together properly. Obviously, there's a lot of off-the-field problems as well that we've gone into detail about in length, and that good show that you hosted last Tuesday night, we were talking about that also as well. I think that's just how it's going to be for them this season, especially this season. I think you're going to get games where you're going to play teams like Sheffield United, and it's going to be knitting, gritting. It's going to be a 50-50 on what way it goes that day. If it's going to be a win or a draw or even losing it. I think there's a good basis there to build off of. I really do. I think I hear even now, it really frustrates me when I hear some Blues fans saying that they think that Bowyer is not the right guy for them. I think it's not really a fair situation at the moment. There's not really that freedom to probably bring in who he wants with, as I say, off the field problems also as well. I just think, obviously, as football fans, and I went through it yesterday as well, it's disappointing when you get results like that happen. But I think that's just going to be the consensus for Blues this season. I think they're going to get games like that where it's going to be like that.
I don't think there's anything you can say, Gav, that that would offend Blues fans more than something that slipped out of my mouth the other night when I said they're very simple people, which on reflection I apologise for. I didn't really.
That was a howler.
I think I would have said it a different way.
Jonathan was there. I mean, the context was
Yeah.
You know, I realised as it was coming out of my mouth that they're simple people, in that as long as the club are up front with them and they're getting some kind of answers, which they were starting to get from the owners, then they can concentrate on supporting the team, what's going on the field, and the performances have started to pick up, and that's the point that I was making. But it didn't go down well with certain areas of Small Heath, but sorry. But I mean, Dom, we saw it's very good material from Blues, like wearing these kind of faceless masks that we've seen at St Andrews, and making a statement about how they feel about the owners. And we know, yes, things have improved in recent weeks regarding communication there, but the Blues fans that could be there on Friday night, bearing in mind that there's still restrictions on the amount of Blues fans that can attend at St Andrews, that was quite a powerful statement with those masks, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was really powerful. That's gone on news media now. We're talking about it here. It's obviously in the papers and on the telly and stuff like that. So people are learning about these protests. People are learning about the problems that the fans of Birmingham City are facing and the club of Birmingham City is facing. So good on them for organising a good protest to sort of protest against the ownership, which, as you say, despite the recent improvements in communication, long may that continue. Will it continue? Remains to be seen. They deserve a lot more and they deserve a lot better. And I wanted to talk briefly about the on-field stuff, because I think a great point about Lee Bowyer was made there. Because I know in previous podcasts I've sort of said, is he that good? But it's sort of similar with the Steve Bruce thing. You can't be in a position to be too fussy. And Birmingham City are in a period of massive transition, aren't they? They're trying to get rid of players like Ivan Sanchez, who's gone back to Spain. Sun Yich as well, they're trying to get rid of him. Some of these players who have been on big wages, they haven't got big saleable assets like Che Adams and Jude Bellingham before. So they're trying to build a new squad without really having the money to do it. And they're sort of using loans and stuff like that to get their players to get new players in and build a squad that Lee Bowyer wants, because obviously some players who haven't really applied themselves or who might have fell out with him. So I think with all the ownership stuff going on as well, Blues are in a real period of transition, and I think the best thing that Blues fans can do to make sure that period of transition continues in a way and concludes in a way that represents Birmingham fans is by continuing to protest and make sure that throughout this entire process that the Birmingham City coaching staff, as they already do, and the Birmingham City ownership, who need to do more, make sure that the interests of Birmingham City fans and the voices of Birmingham City fans are being heard more. So I think it was a really encouraging protest, and I hope more things like that go on because it's nice to see the Birmingham City fans doing something together and being united, and it's something they should be proud of as a fan base. You're on mute.
And they go to I'm on mute. And they go to Bournemouth on Wednesday nights. So the case will be where the wounded animal, but we'll have to kind of wait and see. They're all right in terms of their league position, providing nothing bad happens. And as we mentioned before, the EFL have always got Birmingham on their radar, but they're a comfortable distance at the moment away from the bottom three, and they'll just look to finish the season strongly. You with the West Midlands Football Podcast on this Sunday evening. Myself, Ben Ellis, Jonathan Wimbush, Gavin Longthorne, and Dom Phillips. And Gav and Jonathan, if you'll excuse us, we're going to talk about the biggest club in the West Midlands at the moment.
We've already spoken about them, Ben.
That has always been the case.
We've already spoken about them, so
that has always been the case.
We have to rewind the show.
Yes, I'll count the European Cups that are on that are in your cabinet, Gav. Thank you very much indeed. So, we'll say though, and I might be wrong, but I'm quite confident in this. Wolves were the first team to play in major European competition from the West Midlands back in the early 1960s. So, we'll give them they call us historians.
But was it played in a custard bowl for a stadium? That is the question.
Yes.
We'll have to come back to that in another show.
Molyneux's all right. They look after you. I've done press at Molyneux, and they look after you. So anyway, like we said, biggest club in the not just the West Midlands, but the whole of the Midlands, Aston Villa, and I feel like it's been forever. Got this game against Leeds on Wednesday night. There was a behind closed doors friendly at Villa Park against the Brentford 11. I think it was it. The other day.
And then there was Mould on Saturday as well.
Mould on Saturday. So treated it like a bit like a mini sort of pre-season ahead of the game against Leeds. Did anybody see Philip Coutinho's goal for Brazil?
I did, and I enjoyed it.
I think he's going to do that for you a couple of times. I don't think you'll be moaning for it.
Once or twice will be fine. Yeah, once or twice will be fine. No doubt about that. Wednesday night, Dom under the lights. It should be quite the atmosphere, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, which I never really say before games of Villa against Leeds, because obviously the last time we played Leeds at home was when I think Bamford scored a hat-trick. That was like just when the season was starting. I think we were in a good run early on last season, and that was when it all sort of was like wheels are coming off a little bit, but thankfully they didn't in the end. But yeah, it wasn't a great showing that Villa Leeds last time, so I hope we get a bit of revenge for that. And as you say, I think off the back of that mini pre-season that Jar's been talking about, friendly wins 2-1 against Brentford. We finally beat Brentford, but it's in a friendly, so it doesn't count, which is a shame because we always have a curse against them. And then we beat Moulder. With that last game, Jacob Ramsey scored a really, really good goal. John McGinn scored a good one as well. And Ollie Watkins got himself a goal. There are some good little highlights. So definitely recommend giving that one a look. But I'm looking forward to the Leeds game. As I said, I think the players will be up for it. I think the coaching staff will be up for it. We might see a Villa that are looking a little bit even more like a Gerrard team in terms of their identity. Hopefully we're seeing players that are quite fit, raring to go. The team will probably have picked itself by this point. So, I mean, as you say, it's been so long since we've seen Villa. I'm really looking forward to it. Optimistic, and I'm hopeful that one of Ollie Watkins and Danny Ings can get himself amongst the goals as well, because they need some goals. I think those strikers do.
Well, we're pretty confident now that it won't be both of them from the start. It will be one or the other, and we know that Gerrard is strong enough to actually make that decision. But highly likely that probably John McGinn will come back in after suspension, missing the Everton game. You don't really want to be in a position where the team picks itself, but you also do want a settled team as well. So it's kind of getting that sort of that balance together, isn't it? Leeds, they had Bamford out injured for so long, and players like Rafinha as well. They pick up the odd win here and there, but you always fancy a chance. I mean, the way Bielsa goes at it, the scoreline could be anything on Wednesday night, couldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what Leeds are like, as you said, they're a very open attacking team. So we have to be defensively strong enough and resolute enough to deal with that. I think the way we played against Everton shows that we can do that. Whether we can replicate it is another matter. But anything can happen. I mean, they've got so many injuries as well. I'm not sure if Calvin Phillips is back or Bamford. Rafinha will be back. I know he scored a goal in that Brazil game that Coutinho scored the worldie in as well, I believe. So, they've got some great players like that, but they've also got a bit of a depleted squad. So I think we need to exploit that. We need to sort of be a bit smarter with our play than Leeds maybe are, and try and sort of get our goals, defend strong, and show a good resolute performance and get 3 points. And I really do think we can do that.
And I'll come to the Gav on this one. I mean, this is the beginning of a run of fixtures for Villa, which include Newcastle and Watford, Southampton as well, I think, as well within that run of fixtures as well. We talked about Wolves pushing for a European place. So if Villa can get on a roll with some decent results over the next month to 6 weeks or so, I mean, they could be... it could be very encouraging signs heading towards the end of the season.
Yeah, well, as you say, it's talk about our transfer window, but I think Villa had a very, very good transfer window. I think they brought in some good players. I think they brought definitely players that will give you something into the squad that's different from what you got. As you mentioned, Coutinho, I think in there's a class player, but I think he's at that stage now where I think he needs to find a club that's home, and he might have that with Villa. He might have it with a manager like Gerrard. And as you say, there's a lot of points to play for there. Still, even now, there's a lot of the season still left. You're playing teams that have got something to play for as well. So if you play the right way, there's an open game there for you, because if teams like Watford and Newcastle have to go and get points, and it's going to give you a lot of gaps in those games. Game Wednesday night, apologies, sorry. This season, I think with Leeds, the Strolcombe is a bit of a mood team. I think within about 15 minutes of that game, you're going to know which Leeds you're going to have that night. Calvin Phillips, it's been a massive miss for them. So if he's back or not, then I think that's going to make a massive difference. But I think you got the players on Wednesday night to really hurt them. I think, as Dom said, it's going to be an open game that you're going to get with them. I think that's the only way they can play. I think that's how Bielsa sets them out. And yeah, it could be a cricket score, really, if you play it the right way. I think, as you said as well, Ben, it's still a season where anything could be there for Villa. I mean, similar with Wolves, could have had a cup run, which is unfortunate. I think it's shifted the attention to the league, though, which could be a benefit for you, because I think when there's that focus there, you're playing week in, week out in the one competition, and you can build that momentum in that competition as well. So it still could be an anything season for Villa. I mean, I'll bounce the question back to you and Dom. What would you be happy with this season, seeing that you've had the transition of manager, you've got these players that have come in that I think if they bed into the team, you could see more out of them at the start of next season as well as now. What would you think would be what would you be happy with this season?
Dom?
It's a tough question. I think if I was being greedy, I'd probably ask to be challenging for the European places. But given the realism of football, there might be injuries, and it's clubbing a managerial transition in place, as you say. I think I really want top half. I know there's also a lot of concentration of competition there. We've talked about Wolves, West Ham. These are clubs who are going to be pushing at least for top half, at least for Europa League, and in West Ham's case, top four. So, I'd love to be getting into that top half and just, doing better than we did last season, which was 11th. But also, I want us to play some good football and ultimately, I think, build some confidence into the team, end well, because Purslow and Gerrard were saying, if you end well, that makes players want to join in the summer. And I think that's really important, because the next transfer window needs to be our squad going up at top level.
Yeah. I'm looking for a strong finish. I'm not necessarily concerned about league placings, but I'm a big believer in if you finish one season strongly, you start the next season strongly, and you kind of carry that sort of momentum over. If you look at last season to the start of this season, had the couple of wins against Tottenham and obviously Chelsea on the last day, but generally it wasn't a great finish to the season for Villa, and then that kind of the whole calendar year of 2021 wasn't particularly good, and obviously it cost Dean Smith his job. If you can finish strongly and start the next season, I'll give you the example of when John Gregory came in, second half of the season. in '98, and they were looking at a relegation battle. They actually got what was then a UEFA Cup place with the run they went on. And the following season, they were top of the table at Christmas and didn't kick on in the second half of the season. So, the history is there to tell you that is the case. Just one thing, it's probably me being cheeky again. Does anybody watch here the Big Match Revisited on ITV4?
Occasionally.
Yeah.
It's very,
if you're not watching, there's a whole season of stuff to do to catch up. Dom, it's 80-81 they're doing at the minute in the current run. I'm just
that
saying.
is a season worth catching.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad, and they're up to sort of April time now, where it was getting sort of nip and tuck and what have you. So but not just from the point of view that obviously Villa ended up winning the league, but West Brom were very strong at the time. Of under Ron Atkinson. Wolves had just won a League Cup in 1980. So they were I think they got to the semi-finals of the FA Cup in '81 as well. So it was. I was chatting with Peter With actually towards the 40th anniversary of the title, and I was on a big. Did a big podcast with Peter With and Tom Ross and all that, and Tom Ross was saying that time was the absolute best time as a fan to be following football in the Midlands with all that was going on against the backdrop of a lot of social problems for people. There was high unemployment, there was race riots, so the local football scene at the time was a really happy sort of distraction from all of that. So it's a bit before my time, and certainly before all of your times. But it happened. It was real, and I think it's always, I don't think any club should shy away from its history and what it's done and what it's achieved. And you think, John? Do you think of Ron Atkinson's side with West Brom at the time, bringing Regis Cunningham and Batson through, and the impact that made on not just football but society as well? It's not it's just all football. Well, there's not. There's plots and there's subplots and all kinds of.
Yeah. I mean, I've been told all with it. So. Yeah, I've been told all about the history of West Bromwich Albion from my parents and my grandparents, who are all big West Bromwich Albion fans. They've told me about the likes of the 3 degrees, as they were called.
Well, I didn't want to use that term. Term, but historically, yes.
Historically, that's what we call them. There's a big statue of them in the middle of West Brom now, and also the last home game that we had, or the home game before, we celebrated Jeff Astle on the 20th anniversary of his untimely death. West Bromwich Albion are really proud of their history. On a certain sports channel, which I won't mention here, they were actually showing the last day of the 2004-2005 season, or as we call it, the Great Escape. So yeah.
Do you know what, John? Do you know what?
Yeah.
I was there that day.
At the Hawthorns?
I was at the Hawthorns that day.
Oh, yeah. Mate, I was in Birmingham working that day, I remember. I was
at the game. I was working for at the time a well-known firm of bookmakers used to take bets at the ground on the day, and I was there. I used to do all the Villa games, and when Villa were away, they said you got a choice: you do Blues or Albion. Which do you want to do? I said Albion, please. But I was much younger, but they were all going on. It's the Great Escape, and we're going to do it. The first team that were bottom at Christmas in the Premier League to stay up, and we got March became April, and you got to Easter, and the Albion fans that I was working with were whistling the Great Escape and all that, and I was like, yeah, you got a chance, you could do it. And then my boss at the time, massive Albion fan, I said, should we tell them what happens at the end of The Great Escape? Has anybody actually seen the movie, The Great Escape? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, they don't make it. It kind of ends tragically for them at the last minute. But so let them keep. But I know I was there. And where we were based was just off from the tunnel and the dressing rooms, and there was sort of champagne flowing and all that. And they were trying to say we were having a drink in the bar afterwards once it all died down, and they said you're really an Albion fan now, aren't you? You've been converted to this, and that was the point where I left. I realised that I've stayed here too long. But yeah, I was there that day, and so there are sort of these kind of people say you shouldn't follow history, you should look forward with football, and generally, in terms of your team progression, you should. But what's the point in doing any of it if you can't look back on it with a bit of?
There's certain fans who think football started in 1992, so we won't mention those.
Well, that's true. No, but you're spot on, and this is why I mentioned that TV show that's covering the 80-81 season, because it didn't. You know, if you look at football, not just from a Midlands point of view, with what Liverpool were doing at the time, and Nottingham Forest, and then an English team won the European Cup 6 years in a row at the time, and that's we have English success in the Champions League as it is now, but not concurrent years, not 6 years in a row.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen again. So no, we shouldn't detract from what's gone before. Yes, there's been improvements in the game as it's gone forward. 3 points for a win, for example. The back pass rule. It's weird when you watch old football and they pass back to the keeper and he just picks it up. That's weird. That's weird. You just expect this sort of. You expect the whistle to go. Keepers just pick the ball up. Yeah, they could then. Oh, okay. Anyway, we're rambling on because we've reached the end, but it's been fun. The Box to Box podcast will be out nationally across all of our platforms on Tuesday night as usual. You might see one of us appear on that. We make intermittent appearances, but we'll be back next Sunday when we'll actually have had more football to watch this week by the time we can talk about it next week. A couple of games for Villa by the time we'll speak. I think we play Sunday, don't we, Dom? Newcastle, so that'll be fresh.
Yeah, Newcastle away.
That'll be fresh in the minds and what have you. Wolves play Sunday as well at Tottenham. What we're Albion doing? Sheffield United.
Sheffield United on Wednesday, and then we've actually got Blackburn on Valentine's Day, so that's going to be fun.
It's a Monday night.
It's Monday night, so that's going to be fun for all the married Albion fans. That is, to be honest.
That was just weird then when you said Sheffield United on Wednesday.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
A paradox. We've got all these great names. We could be Rovers. We could be United. We could be City. We could be even Albion. We could be Wednesday. Okay, fair enough. Right, from myself, Ben Ellis at Ben Ellis 1982 on Twitter. Gav, are you on Twitter? We don't see a Twitter there. You on Twitter?
No, I'm not. I'm not a Twitterer. No, on Facebook, on Instagram, but no. Yeah.
Okay. At Dom Phillips 02 and the best Twitter handle at Crazy Shadow 303, Jonathan, which is where you'll find us. We hope you've enjoyed it. We'll talk to you again next Sunday. Enjoy your football for all of the upcoming week. From me, Ben Ellis, and the team here. Have yourself a fantastic Sunday evening. Goodbye.
Bye, guys.